Yeah, let's do it. We're in.
Hi. Hey. How's it going, girlfriend?
I love it, love it, love it when you say, hey, girl, hey. Lightworkers Unite is a podcast and social show hosted by intuitive women, lightworkers, and most importantly, friends, Mayume and Manjeet. Welcome to our podcast, Lightworkers Unite, where we believe there is a lightworker within all of us.
Whether you are a medium, an educator, or a nuclear medicine technologist, there is a lightworker within you, and we have work to do.
This is a safe and sacred place where lightworkers connect, grow, and learn.
And share our light with the world. Hey, I'm thinking, how do you feel about talking a little bit about my upcoming quarterly group healing session about releasing guilt?
Yes, let's
I'd
do it.
love to hear your thoughts about it. Like just that emotion and what is it, how does it manifest for you? And how do you get rid of guilt? Like feelings of being guilty. And maybe what are you guilty? What do you feel guilt about anything? Just curious.
That's such a heavy word in so many ways, and there's different form. I feel there's different forms of guilt. I have always. This is so interesting. So I grew up, and my dad was a little First Baptist boy, so a very Christian boy, and my mom was Buddhist, and so there was not a lot of guilt, not like you hear, which is extremely stereotypical of me to say, but the Catholic guilt, right? And I married a Catholic
Yes.
boy. I raised my girls Catholic. I heard about it, and I remember hearing from some author, some speaker somewhere, I have no idea who, that said guilt is a wasted emotion.
Mm,
And I'm not saying that I agree with that, but it to put your energy in feeling guilty about something
yeah.
is what this person was referencing. And
Yeah.
I also believe, so there's a way of feeling guilty about something, whether you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you treated someone a certain way, you said something that you feel guilty about, whatever it is, guilt, remorse, that kind of thing. But then there's the stuff that's put on you. Someone's making you feel
Mm,
guilty for something. That's the
yeah.
Catholic guilt, like shame on you, you didn't
Mm,
confess today, or shame on you, you didn't go to church today, or shame on the shame and guilt that go hand in hand, because those two words
yeah.
to me kind of live
Yeah.
together, and I hate both. So
Yeah.
the only time guilt does not serve me. I don't like to feel guilty about anything. I don't ever want to make someone feel guilty.
Yeah.
It's hard when you have an aging mother. There's a lot of guilt around her care and having to
Yeah.
possibly, because of her memory and dementia, to have to maybe move her to,
Yeah.
a retirement
Yeah.
assisted memory care facility. I do carry guilt with that. I do. This is new for me, a new guilt.
Mhm.
But I would say that I don't typically carry guilt other
Mm.
than this. I
Yeah.
don't feel it. And if I may, really quickly, because I want to add this,
Hmm.
the the murderer, my father's murderer, her name was Gail Bashir. I wanted, that was the only time that word came up for me in my life, was
Wow.
guilty.
Yes.
She's guilty.
Yeah.
And me wanting her to feel guilty. I wanted it desperately. I wanted her to feel shame. I wanted her to have guilt and remorse. I needed that. And it's so
Yeah.
interesting on a certain level, without that, without knowing or having her admit remorse or her guilt, made it hard for me to move forward. Like
Yeah.
that was something I needed. It was very interesting.
Absolutely.
But generally, and I could be naive here, I don't feel like I have a lot of guilt in my life.
Yeah.
I don't carry a lot of guilt, I guess.
Yeah.
How about you? So, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
loaded question, but Wait, did I
No, I
even
know
answer your
it.
question? Was that,
No,
was
I
that,
think you did.
did I just
I
talk
think you did.
about it? Just talk?
No, I think it's awesome. No, because it is right. That word is just so fucking loaded. There's
It's
so much
loaded.
there, right? It is. It's a
Yeah.
really I think for our little circle, it's 90 minutes, and there's going to be a discussion, and then there's some coaching questions around it, and then it's a kind of a process and a meditation to kind of help us remove or move some of that guilt out of our hearts and into the ether, right? Because guilt is really, it can be very damaging to our soul. It can be very
Yes.
damaging, right, to our psyche. And I think with guilt, it is, I love how you said that with its shame, it's all kind of connected with anxiety as well, and fear. And I
Mm-hmm.
think what happens is when we have that guilt, we suppress it, right? And we hide it because we're
Mm.
shamed, right? We're
Where she,
embarrassed of
yes.
it. And
Yes.
so one of the things that feeds guilt is isolation. It's like hiding it, being alone
Mm.
with it, right? And what it does is and we believe this, you and we talk about this a lot, about how emotion transforms itself into physical ailments and
Yes.
disease. We talk about this a
Yes.
lot, right?
Yes.
Um, and so that's kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about in the group healing session, is
Mm.
how is that manifesting in your life, that you don't even know you have. You
Right.
don't even realize that you're holding on to this guilt, you know so it's been a really interesting research project for me,
I
because
bet.
i I love hearing like what your perspective. It is the law that proved
Yeah.
her guilt. So that
Yeah.
word is right. It's about the atrocities that she actually did in the world, that society has called her guilty, which
Yeah.
she is. That was, so that word, it's just so, I just love hearing you talk about that, because for me, the guilt shows up with, I feel guilty. Like I don't think there's a lot, like I think I resonate with you when you said there's not a lot of things that I've done that make me feel guilty per se, but I do absorb other people's like guilt trip. Like I could, like my mom, she doesn't just enjoy guilt tripping, she runs the whole travel agency. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you that is
Okay. Yes.
really been, for me,
Oh,
that is where
yeah. Like the
I
the
absorb
term
that
guilt trip. She
guilt.
puts you on a guilt trip.
Right. Yes. And
Oh.
it's not conscious. Like she doesn't mean to be. She's a lovely mother, but she definitely knows how to press my buttons, push my
Yeah.
buttons
Mhm.
to make me, and that is the feeling that I feel. I feel guilty. I didn't come up. I always let her
Mm.
down. I didn't do the right
Mm.
thing, like that
Mm.
that kind of
Mm.
energy.
That's
And
yeah.
I know she doesn't mean to, right? It's just, that's been a big part of my journey with that emotion, with guilt,
Yes.
you know.
I feel like there's this question that's hovering right now. I must ask, and I might have to look this up, but maybe because of your research, what is the difference between shame and guilt?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, Brene Brown,
That's what I was going to say, sister. Because
right?
I've
She's a
that
beautiful.
heart, yes, Atlas of the Heart,
Yeah.
reading that book, and she goes into the emotions.
Yes.
Yeah. What does she say about it?
Well, I think she, I mean, in a nutshell, I think she identifies shame as a very dangerous component of guilt. Like guilt
Mm-hmm.
is, and I could be, not, I'm paraphrasing here, but there are pieces of guilt that are actually good for us to experience. Like when we're being an absolute douchebag to somebody, we should feel guilty for being a douchebag to that person, right? Like
Yeah.
that, there is some, that emotion itself is actually quite good for us to stay in empathy, to understand I'm not a narcissist, I'm actually being an absolutely raging bitch right now.
Yeah.
And you can have guilt about the way you are
Yeah.
treating somebody,
And take
right? So
accountability for it. And yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
Whereas shame, is it's a very deep rooted fear, of being found out, of doing something, of and
Mm.
that shame can really be paralyzing. It can be very, very, very
Yes,
difficult to overcome.
I
And I
agree.
think
I
she
wonder.
kind of talks a little
Oh,
bit about
sorry. Go
that.
ahead.
Oh, I was
Yeah.
just
Does
going to
she?
say about shaming as parents. She kind of talks a little bit about how, parents will sometimes shame our children, into
Mm-hmm.
corrective or trying to be a good person, or change behavior through shame. And that's actually one of the worst fucking things you can do, because
Correct. I
our psyche
freaking
does not respond well to that, right?
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I do not like it if I do not believe in that, and I hate it if
Mm.
I ever witness a parent shaming their child, because
Yeah.
I
Oh, I
do want to
can't.
intervene. I do want to say something because I want to stop it right then and there, and I know it's none
Oh,
of my
I
business.
know.
It is
Yeah.
absolutely awful. And I feel like shame is something that happens to an individual that goes deep in. It's like it goes
Yes.
deep
Yes.
in, where guilt is like,
Yeah.
oh, so, you're, I'm guilty, sorry, guilty of that. It can be a little lighter, like, oh, I feel
Hmm.
guilty that I did that. Oh, I feel guilty that I just, you know, just what's the
Yeah.
word when you're driving? I just cut that guy off. I feel guilty about, oh, I should have done that.
Right.
There's little
Right.
bouts,
Yeah.
but shame is deep.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yes.
it's like goes to so into the soul, inward for an
Mm,
individual. I don't
yeah.
like it.
It is a deeper projection of guilt, according to Brene, my
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend. But yeah, she talks a lot about that. And in our workshop, on the 16th, I'm going to be talking about both, like shame,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
as a derivative of guilt,
Yeah.
because that's where the magic is, right? That, like, feeling guilty about something. Yeah, okay, yeah, I love that. I cut somebody off. I feel really shitty about that. And I might wave and
Mm-hmm.
say, I'm so sorry, or whatever. But it's that really deep rooted stuff that you sometimes, I think, don't even know it's there. And that's the
Yeah.
piece that I'm really excited about talking about, is where are those places of deep shame? Like, and how do I break through that? Like, what do I do
Right.
about that?
How do I
How do I
release
move?
shame?
Yeah.
Yeah. Will you guys
Yeah.
talk about
And
that?
so,
Like how to release shame
yeah,
and
that'll
guilt
be
or
the
guilt?
coaching exercise. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
exactly.
that's
That's going to
awesome.
be part of, what that's going to be about, and how do we deal with that? Because guilt, shame, it's very complex, isn't
Yeah,
it? It's a
it
very
is.
complex emotion. And so it's been really tricky for me I'm not going to lie, to put it together, because
Sure.
it could be so long, it could be so big, and I have to kind of like fine tune
Yeah.
it and create
Yeah.
I want it to be intentional and eye opening, and also healing. So we're
Right.
actually in the meditation. I'm using water energy to release, um, what that looks like, to release and wash away guilt, maybe even
Mm.
guilt that we don't even know is there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be kind of I don't know, it should be really fun. I'm super excited about it.
Oh
But
my
guilt
gosh,
shows
that's
up as
good.
anxiety, right? It shows up as
It does.
crying. It can show up in
Yes.
all these, like, these other ways. But if you just precipitate it down, it's actually like, what do we feel really shameful about? What do we feel really guilty about in our life? You know?
That phrase that parents always use, you should be ashamed of yourself.
I
You know,
know. God,
um, I know, right? And I know sometimes it's not meant to go as deep, but I think it does. I think it does hit a child like you should be ashamed of yourself or whatever.
I know.
I hate that saying.
I
um,
know. It really hurts, doesn't it? It
yeah,
feels like a fucking dagger. Like,
yeah,
I should be ashamed. I need to hold that in. I need to be, um, never talk about it. I should be in isolation. And that's what I'm really excited about, having kind of this safe space for you to not necessarily talk about it with everybody. I mean, although that there'll be an
right.
opportunity to do that in discussion, but even if you were to just bring it out in your life. And I think that's one of the things that really helps us deal with guilt and shame, is conversation. It's talking about it. It's about letting it out,
Yes,
letting that
releasing
beast
it.
out. Yeah, so that you can actually look at it. Because what, Brene talks about, guilt and shame, they grow with secrecy, silence, and judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is going to be a safe space where we are going to remove those three things, right? Where
I
we
love
can just be
it.
empathetic with each other and talk and really be open, because guilt can't live with an empathetic heart. It can't live
Right.
there, right? If we're
Right.
open and we have forgiveness,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, we are so hard on ourselves. I agree.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
we are so fucking hard on ourselves. I can't even believe it, right? Like where in your life do you think you're hard on yourself the hardest?
Oh, everyone knows this. Our listeners are probably tired of hearing it. I am the hardest on
Oh,
myself when it comes to my body. I really am. I have
oh,
just because of my up and down battle of
mm,
where I want my weight to be and how I feel about my body, and especially because this is interesting. I mean, it's not shame. I don't think. I don't think, but it's more frustration, guilt, and frustration. It's
mm,
I'm hard on myself because I have lost the weight before and had it off for 2 years, mind you. So it
yes,
wasn't like I lost it and then it all came back swooping back. It all came back for a damn good reason because of what happened in my life. But it came
yeah,
back, and that's the part that I'm hard on my. I beat myself up. Like, how could I let that? Why am I here again? I work so damn
mm,
hard and it's all back again and it's emotional. And so, those are things I'm working out.
mm,
But I would say that's probably the
yeah.
area right there that I'm hard on myself about.
It's your self guilt. Like, so
It's
yeah,
it's
it's
the
not like
it's
that you're
this,
doing something to someone else. It's what you're doing to yourself.
and I would say it's actually more, is it guilt? It feels more like shame. I'm gonna say
Mm,
it. As I'm talking about it,
yeah.
it feels like shame and that fear of the judgment word, fear of judgment, like, oh gosh, look at Mayume. She gained all her weight back, right? And
Oh,
I'm not saying that people are, I mean, maybe people are saying that. Fine. They could be, whether they're saying it in a nasty way or in a, oh, that's too bad, whatever it is.
mm,
But it's a feeling that I have of being judged and like
mm,
the judgment of others, wondering like how
yeah.
people are so mean. There's a lot of fat shaming out there,
Yes.
like, oh, how could they do that to themselves and blah
Absolutely.
blah blah blah.
Yes.
But but knowing that I am hard on myself that way, I work really hard to say I don't really fucking care what anyone thinks, and I love
Yes.
myself. I love who I am. I love my life. Yeah, I wish 30 pounds weren't doing life with me. I wish I could release those 30 pounds. Here, someone take it. Let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
It just makes things a little harder, a little tighter. But for the most part, I'm not going to let it stop me. It's not going to stop
Yeah.
me. Where I think people who beat themselves up or hard on themselves it can be debilitating sometimes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I love that.
mm,
Yeah. That's really, it's interesting, isn't it, to hear, like, to talk about it, like to have this kind of this opportunity to say, whoa, what do I have guilt around? Like, what do is there
yeah,
something that I can honestly, maybe it's the way I treated somebody, or I did something when my, maybe to my girls, like, was I a shit mom, or did I, what could I have been better at, or judging myself constantly and feeling shameful for, those things. I know. Um,
yeah. So, how about you?
um, I do. I think sometimes I do have a lot of guilt around being a good daughter. And that might be very cultural. And, and like, I said, my mom like runs a fucking travel agency
Y-
for guilt tripping. So it's been my my whole life and I love her so much. But
I
I,
know,
I
I know.
definitely, I'm the one who gets, I think, the brunt of a lot of her frustration, maybe with other people in her life. I think I'm the one that kind of gets that. And so
Okay.
I remember
Is it?
my best friend.
May I? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh,
I was gonna ask.
go
No,
ahead.
you tell the story. I'm gonna hold on to my question.
Oh, well, it was it was interesting because my my best friend Corrine, who lives up in Canada, who's newly engaged, by the
Oh,
way. Great news, great
yeah.
news. Um, but she had said to me, and I remember I've known her since I was 16 years old. I mean, so we're like best buddies. And I remember one day she said to me, my mom was and I were having a conversation, and I was feeling guilty about doing not coming up or whatever the fuck it was. And I remember she said, nobody in the world can make you feel guilty.
That's right.
You allow them to make you feel guilty. And that was like like aha
Mm-hmm.
moment, like the clouds parted and the sun came out. Like I was like,
Yes.
wow, I had never thought of it that way. I was always a victim
Yeah.
of that. And I still am, but it's definitely not to the magnitude that it was until
Mm-hmm.
she said that to me.
Yeah.
Nobody can make you feel anything.
That's
You're
right.
allowing yourself to feel guilty,
That's right.
for whatever reason. And I mean, it's childhood. That's how I grew up. Like it's a
It's
pattern
become
that's
a limiting belief.
beef. Yeah. And so that's kind of where
Yeah.
I struggle with
Mm-hmm.
guilt.
So my question to you was, is it truth? Do you believe that you are not
Mhm.
a good daughter?
Yeah.
Or do you believe that aren't, you could be better? I mean, what's where are you stuck?
Yeah.
I think the truth is you know that you are a good daughter. But is it like
Yeah.
you feel like you could be better?
Yeah.
Where do you get stuck?
Yeah. I feel like it is just this pattern. Like I'm just so used to feeling that way until I stop, breathe, and really ask myself the question, am I a good daughter? Like, it's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 year life situation. Stop, breathe, analyze it. Am I a really good daughter? And then I make the decision. And I say, no, I am a good daughter. I have good intentions. Yeah, I'm not always perfect and I don't always do the right thing they want me to do, but I'm doing the right thing for me.
Yes.
And then the last step is do, right? It's stop, breathe, analyze, decide, and then do. And then the doing in this part is releasing guilt,
Yeah.
isn't it? Right? It's that feeling of like, I'm gonna let that go. I don't need it. I can breathe freely without feeling guilty about
Of
it.
course. And
Yeah.
I might even go as far as to say that you don't deserve that guilt.
Yeah.
That some of that
Yeah.
that you do allow or is maybe your mom's issue, it's not you. So if you
Yeah.
could really acknowledge that, because my mom has always done that. The first part of my life was always guilt. Vietnamese mother, might be a cultural thing. I wasn't the daughter
Hmm.
that she thought, because I grew up here, so we had cultural conflicts. I
Mm,
had a lot more freedom, and so there was anger, and she made me feel guilty for being a bad daughter, or not the daughter that she
yeah.
expected me to be. And
Oh,
it took
yeah.
a while to understand that that was her issue, not mine at all.
Hmm.
Because I feel, and I have no problems. I mean, I feel like I'm a good daughter. That kind of stopped as soon as I said, no, I'm a good daughter. I think I
Oh, I
do a lot.
love that.
I'm going to
Yeah. And
acknowledge
you are.
and say
Yeah.
to myself that I do a lot. I'm very mindful.
Yeah.
But it also had to come in a time in my life where I was ready to kind of release that guilt that she was putting upon me. It wasn't my
Yeah.
guilt. It was her issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And it's
it
so
wasn't
interesting,
truth.
right? Hearing you. I mean, we have this in common, right? This is very interesting. We're kind of tethered by this maternal guilt that, this dynamic, right? That may or may not be called. I think it is pretty cultural. A lot of my Indian friends
Mm-hmm.
definitely can fucking relate to me, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But um, I think when I'm hearing you talk about this, what really comes up for me is how deliberate and how conscious I am to not do it to my girls.
Yes.
Do you
I was
find
just going
that?
to say that.
I'm just
I will
so like
not ever make them feel
hypersensitive
guilty.
about that with them. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and I still do sometimes. Like I still do. And my daughter will say something like, okay, Grammy.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I was totally guilt
Did
tripping,
I
wasn't
just
I?
book
Oh
you
my God.
tickets for a guilt trip? Yeah.
Oh my God, I just channeled my mom. I'm sorry. But it's
Uh,
so funny, that and they know that I don't want to be like that. I'm very open with my daughters about that, about what I struggled with and where I struggle, as a mom sometimes. And so it's so funny when they can throw it back at me, and and it's a reflection piece for me. Like, oh fuck, I'm sorry. Yeah,
mhm.
that was a total guilt trip. You go have a good time. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
I don't, and I don't even realize. I think that's the part that
Yeah.
is so weird about guilt is like because it is something that we grow up with, we don't even realize we're doing it, or we're still experiencing it, or we're still processing it.
It's a pattern that we're repeating. Yeah. Where it's
Yes,
learned.
yeah,
We've learned it. We've heard it. How many
yes.
times have I heard my mom say, whatever she said to, oh my God, you leave again. And oh, you always do all the fun stuff. You leave me here by myself, blah, 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 whatever it is.
Oh
Right.
yeah. Oh
And
geez,
yeah, I mean, yeah, sorry.
it's hard.
My life, my soul journey, your life, your soul journey. I'm not
Mm,
responsible for your happiness. And so I have to choose. I mean, yeah.
yeah,
And now, I mean, there's times now my heart's different and it's a different stage. Now I
yeah.
am taking care of her and I want to. I want to, but not because she's making me not because I feel bad or guilty.
Oh,
So,
it's a deep desire. Yes, I
yeah,
love
it's a
that.
decision. Yeah. Yeah. It's so
Yeah.
interesting though, the mothers and daughters, and you're right. I got 3 of them, man, and I absolutely refuse to have them ever feel shame or guilt.
Yes, I don't want that for them. And I definitely don't want to contribute that to them,
Yeah.
to that because they're going to feel it in the world. I mean, that's just
Mhm.
human nature, right? And like we said before, feeling guilty about something is actually a good like barometer for like morality, right? Like if you're
I agree.
being an absolute asshole in the world, you should have some level of guilt to kind of get you back into alignment, to maybe make an apology, make amends, right? To do what you need to do to correct that behavior. And also so that you don't do that again to somebody, inadvertently or whatever. But that deeper process of that shame, that really deep, deep piece that really keeps us small. And in the workshop, we're going to talk about what chakras are really involved in that guilt, and
Mm.
how we're going to clear that with the meditation.
Mhm.
So it should be really super excited. But yeah, it's been really, I'm so grateful for the conversation, because it's been a tough one for me to process, to
Yeah.
create, because we've done
Yeah.
anger, I've done fear, guilt, and then in the winter we're going to do releasing overwhelm. That's the fourth part of
Mm.
the group healing session, because it's right in the middle of Christmas when all the shit's breaking loose. um
Don't I know?
oh
Yes.
girl, that's going to be a good one. It's going to be a lot of fun. But this one, thank you for helping me process
Mm.
this and
Absolutely. It's a great
really
topic.
work it
It
out.
is. It's a great topic and something that all of us, we individuals feel and deal with every day, whether it's happening to
Yeah,
us, where we feel someone's putting guilt upon us, or we are putting it on ourselves. Yeah.
yeah,
I think you're right. Guilt can be a barometer. It can keep us in check, but it doesn't need to turn into shame. It doesn't need to go deep.
yeah,
It can just be like, oh, God, oh, sorry about that. Yep, okay,
yeah,
right. Oh, geez, I feel bad. Whatever it is, but I hope I never make anyone feel guilty in whatever it is,
yeah.
because there's nothing that important. Well, sorry, I digress.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe there is. Killing my father, yeah, you
Yeah.
are guilty. I hope you
Oh,
feel shame.
fuck.
I do. But
Absolutely.
that's, that's not my I it's already done. It's already done.
Yeah.
She said what she needed to say. I knew she was guilty. I knew that she felt remorse and that she felt ashamed for what she did.
Yeah.
She acknowledged it, and then I acknowledged it and said thank you, and that's it. Forgiveness done.
Yeah.
Now she has to deal with her own shame.
Her demons. Yeah. And we can
Yeah,
end with
not
this
me.
quote that I love.
Oh
Kind of
yes.
wraps up what you're saying. It's by Nikita Gill. And I have so many of these amazing quotes that are like going to be sprinkled throughout the workshop, because they're just so poignant and powerful. Um, this one, it's called guilt, and it says guilt is the worst demon to bear, strangling you from the inside of your body. Apologize, make amends, let go, and breathe free.
That's right. Good one. Love that. It's
Yes.
beautiful. So we can
Mm.
all take that in. I love it.
Yes. Thank you, Nikita Gill. Thank you, sister.
Nice. And thank
I
you,
love it.
sister.
Yes.
Good
Thank
job. And
you. Thank you
thanks,
for doing
Lightworker,
this.
for listening. Okay, Lightworkers, where in your
Yes.
life are you having guilt or shame and need to release it? I love that quote, Manj. That
Yes.
is beautiful.
Isn't it awesome? Yeah. And,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to dive into this a lot more. It's February, or sorry, February. Jesus. What month is this? September. Oh my God. I'm so out of it. September 14th at 5:30. So if you want to join me, that would be awesome. I'd love, love, love to have you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for
All
this,
right.
my
Yes, I hope
sister.
so.
Thank
That's going
you.
to be amazing. All right, guys.
Yay.
Yay. Good to
Awesome.
see you, Manj. Good
All right.
topic.
I'm going to
All
go
right.
have a guilt-free dessert.
That's right, sister. Me too.
All
All right.
right.
Love ya.
Bye.
Bye.